On today's episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, we are showing some love to the number 87 Sidney Crosby and his 500th goal, some DFS selections for Thursday's loaded 10-game board, and as always, our best bets of the night.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Thursday, everybody, and welcome back to your favorite fantasy hockey podcast. It's the Locked On Fantasy Podcast with Flip and Steele. Thank you so much for joining us again. And thank you for making us your first listen every single day. You can find us out there across all your favorite platforms. Hit us up on YouTube as well. Make sure you smash that subscribe button so you do not miss a single episode, which right now, Steele, we are rolling, brother. Lock of the nights every single night almost. We're not going to jinx it, but we appreciate all the love. Thank you so much for being here. On today's episode, you know what you can expect. Thursday night has a loaded 10-game board. Steele and I are fired up, but we're a little extra fired up with this many games to sink our teeth into from a betting and DFS perspective. So we'll be feeding you those. But right off the top, I got the black and yellow on. We're showing some love to number 87, arguably one of the greatest players to ever lace him up. His 500th career goal, Steele. We're going to take a look at him, show him some love, but also break it down from his overall fantasy value. He is getting up there in age. What do you do with the guy in a dynasty? You're going to ride with him this year, but what are you going to do next year? So we're going to help you out through a little bit of a Sidney Crosby special today. Steele, thank you for joining me, my brother. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. You know, I 2 out of 3 bets hit last night. I've been on an absolute fire this last 2 weeks. So excited that I kept the ball rolling. And I'm actually really happy that you're also getting the ball rolling as well. You've turned it around a little bit.
Turned it around a little bit. We're officially jinxing it now, so you can expect another slide of a couple of days. So thanks a lot for that, brother. But yeah, no, I think it's just timely to be talking about Sidney Crosby. He's just one of those generational type talents that everybody knows. Everybody either, you love him or you hate him. If maybe you're a Philadelphia Flyer fan and you can't stand to see number 87,
yeah.
But the special player. And despite coming back from wrist surgery and COVID this year, has really put the Pittsburgh Penguins on his back and is having another sensational season, Steele.
He's been absolutely spectacular to watch. Like, I wouldn't necessarily say put the team on his back this season because Tristan Jarry's played absolutely phenomenal.
Good point.
Chris Letang's been great. Jake Gensel and Brian Rust when he's in the lineup and healthy. They've all been fantastic. The entire team dealt with COVID and injuries practically the entire first 2 months of the season. So all of them have just been great collectively. But again, it's Sidney Crosby, one of the best players we've ever seen play in the NHL. One of the best players, one of my favorite players to watch out there. He's just so talented around the net. His edge work, his creativity on the ice is just phenomenal to watch. I love watching him play every single time. And, from a fantasy standpoint, you're saying, what do you do with him? He's up there in age. He's 34 years old right now. For me, Flip, if you were to trade or pass on drafting Sidney Crosby right now or leading into next year, I would call the cops on you and have you committed for being mentally unstable right there. There's no way you take a pass on him. There's no way you trade him. He's putting up points like it's no tomorrow. 46 points in 38 games right now. He's on a 12-game point streak. A 7-game point streak with 12 points in those games. So this guy's just absolutely lighting it up.
Yeah, I think before I get into the fantasy perspective, I had to write down the stats here for a second. Of course, 14 goals and 32 assists for 46 points in only 38 games this year. But there's also 4 game-winning goals this season. He's still playing almost 20 minutes a night, like just under 20 minutes. And he's still winning just over 50% of his draws. He is a 3-time Cup winner, 2-time Conn Smythe, 2-time Hart, 8-time All-Star. I could go on. Gold medals, World Junior Golds. The bottom line is, Steele, and I think you really already got to it, is he's still productive. When
Mhm.
he's healthy, that's the key here with his age. When he is healthy, he is still a top fantasy producer. And one of the reasons why I was excited to talk about this today, Steele, and it's a bit selfish, is I have Sid in 2 different platforms. Both of them are dynasties. So from a dynasty fantasy perspective, he creates a little bit of an intriguing situation when he's playing this good. Because, hey, like you said, you'd be a fool to pass on him. You'd be a fool to trade him. But also he creates this situation where if you're looking to get younger in a dynasty format, with him playing this well, your return on a guy like Sidney Crosby is going to be through the roof right now. So you could almost sell high in this situation if you were going to do it. But I agree with you, Steele. Like, he is a fantasy beast. And like you mentioned, the edge work. You're on fire this episode already. I love the way Sidney Crosby plays the game and where he just almost knows where to be. And you banged it out of the park already. I think you got a ride with 87 for at least another season or two.
Well, here's the thing too, is the way I'm looking at it right now, and you mentioned it a little bit, but he's only played 38 games a season. He's missed 12 games because of the wrist injury as well as COVID-19. A lot of players have missed COVID-19, so I'm not going to bash him because of that. A lot of players have missed a couple of games, if not more than 5 games because of COVID-19 this season. And he's top 30 in scoring still. So if he plays those 12 games, he easily could have 56, 60 points right now. And be top 15, top 10 in the NHL for scoring leaders right now. And you talked a little about his health, and relatively over the last couple of seasons, he's been pretty healthy for the most part. Like, if you're comparing the last 3 to 4 seasons compared to the early 2010s, where he missed more than 50% of the seasons with concussion and other injuries as well, he's been relatively healthy for the most part. And like you said, like, this guy, like, he's only 34 years old, and it's going to be a big return if you're going to trade him in a dynasty league. So if you were to trade him, you got to ask for a lot because he's worth a lot. And for me, I would keep this guy because 46 points in 38 games. He's one of the best scorers, has one of the best creative minds in the NHL right now.
Yeah, he's a playmaker. He creates for his line mates. He makes them better. No disrespect to Brian Russ and the Evan Rodriguez's of the world, but they've seen already, Brian Russ more so over the course of his career where he is now, but even Evan Rodriguez this season, getting some time with Sid, you can just see he makes players better. In terms of fantasy, in terms of dynasty, take it from someone who tends to have a couple of wobbly pops and make a bad trade or two, or I have my finger on that button, always looking to make a deal. I think this is one of those situations that you scale it back for a second and let the offers come to you, because Sid is going to continue to put up. I think down this stretch, if you have him, it's fool's gold right now, because this guy knows that window. I've talked about the window closing in Pittsburgh for winning. He can feel it. You can see it on the ice. And speaking of which, check this morning, Pittsburgh at plus 1,200 for the Cup might not be a bad investment. Just throwing that out there as well, since this is a betting advice show. But at plus 1,200, Steele, I don't know what you think about that perspective, because Sid's got that look in his eye right now, and that's not good news for the rest of the Eastern Conference.
I think the last time we spoke about this, they were at plus 1,400, so it has moved up.
Wow,
a little bit, not too much, but plus 1,200. I think I might have to sprinkle some on there. Nothing wrong with that. I usually place a couple of bets on 3 or 4 different teams before the Stanley Cup, the playoffs happen. So at 1,200, I like those odds still right there. If it gets a little bit higher, I might have to stay away from it because there might not be too much money to be made. But, there is some money to be made with the Pittsburgh Penguins all the time. They are going up against the Toronto Maple Leafs Thursday night. So there could be some money there to be made as well.
Wow, Steele. It's almost like we're getting ahead of ourselves with talking about the same game yet again with the bets. Speaking of bets, I got to talk to you about BetOnline for a quick second. Football might be over, but basketball is just heating up, both on the pro and college hoop court. From all the latest odds, totals, player performance props to where the next coach might land, BetOnline.net is the #1 spot for all your sports betting needs. BetOnline remains the best spot for all the scores, podcasts, and news this season. Head to the website today. Use your mobile device and learn about the trends and all the action, Olympic coverage, boxing, UFC, you name it, they got it. BetOnline, where the game starts. As always, everybody, thank you so much. We really appreciate the support and all the love. We say it every day. Thank you for making us your first listen. But make sure you check out the Olympic Daily presented by NHL Locked On. It's a bonus podcast covering all the action in Beijing. You can find it on the Locked On Network feed. And just like us, it is free everywhere you find your podcasts. Well, Steele, to our bread and butter, good sir. Our favorite segments of the show every single day. DFS, then big time bets coming up. Honestly, we've said it now for a few episodes in a row, and I'm not trying to get ahead of ourselves. We're not gassing ourselves up too much. Let's get into it. Thursday is jam-packed with 10 games. Let's dive in. Lots of good games across the board. You already mentioned, you teased it a little bit with that Pittsburgh-Toronto game. There's a couple of other ones out there. You know I'm also looking at some grimy matchups. So what do you got, brother?
Yeah, I did a little bit of a tease, but I think that was for the big time bet segment. I kind of stayed away from this game for the DFS selections. I get a little scared. I get a little anxious. I said this in the last episode when it's a big time game and there's some big stars out there. Tristan Jarry, like I mentioned, Jack Campbell. Jack Campbell's been a little bit, not the same since the All-Star break or before that. Tristan Jarry, though, he's been spectacular. So for the DFS selections, I'm going to stay away from this game. That's just how I'm feeling right now. Of course, you can still go with guys like Sidney Crosby, Austin Matthews, Jake Ensel, all those guys. They're still super talented, and you can always expect to get points. But for me, the first game I was looking at, probably not very interesting to anyone else, but it's the Columbus Blue Jackets versus Chicago Blackhawks. And
I thought you were going to say Ottawa Buffalo for a second, and I was about to lose
not happening. Not happening.
All right, here, let's hear it.
It's probably not a very interesting matchup for a lot of you out there, but I like this matchup, and I'm going with the guys who I've mentioned a lot in the past. The Columbus Blue Jackets' entire first line: Boone Jenner, Patrick Laine, Oliver Bjorkstrand. All three of those guys are not going to be super expensive, in the medium range between $5,000 and $5,500. Patrick Laine and Boone Jenner just continue to show us how well their chemistry has worked, especially of recently. Patrick Laine, I believe, had the most points in the entire month of January, or most points since January 7th, I believe, with 12 points in 6 games, I believe. And then I'm also throwing Vladislav Gavrikov in there on defense. So 2 goals, 19 points. He's a very steady defenseman. He's put up 75 hits, 70 blocks, not a ton of shots, but every now and again he can help offensively. But defensively, he's been pretty steady for me. I have him on my fantasy team. I picked him up a couple months ago because I had a couple of injuries, and he's been pretty rock solid for me, helping adding to the teammate that I have on my lineup as well in Patrick Laine. So for me, Gavrikov was not going to be expensive on the blue line, so that can help you in the other matchups, getting a more expensive, talented guy. For example, the New York Rangers, Adam Fox, or a Cale Makar type of player.
Interesting. Is Fox back from injury yet? I know I've been slacking on those updates, but I know he's getting close. So
he's getting close. I think he is on the edge. It's on the fence right now for Thursday.
Yeah, and we like to beat up on these Chicago Blackhawks, Steele, but also
we do. Yes.
there's something to be said about when a team looks to be clicking. The Columbus Blue Jackets are clicking offensively right now. Laine is clearly back to full health, and that's a game changer for their offense. Straight up and down, he is the straw that stirs the drink offensively there for that team. And you can tell that the peripheral guys around him right now are benefiting, in spades. You mentioned them already, so jump on that. Do not sleep on that. Ride the hot hand. I mentioned Braden Shen the other night too, Steele, and I don't want to go off of whatever you have cooking over there, but I did want to mention the one that jumped off the page to me is the St. Louis Blues. I mentioned it the other night. I'm watching way too much hockey involving the St. Louis Blues. It's likely because they're on a Canadian road swing, and I'm seeing them on TV a lot. But they're starting to play better hockey, and I thought, I wrote about it a couple of weeks ago in my column on Saturdays that I'm not really buying this Blues team, and all of a sudden, it's like they heard me. They're starting to play better. If Binnington can figure it out, which I think you mentioned is been potentially their biggest issue, I think they're going to be, and they add Claude Giroux, who knows? Anyway, DFS-wise, Thursday, take a look at Braden Shen again. Take a look at a couple of those St. Louis Blues up front, maybe even some value guys. And David Perron, he's going to be a little cheaper, a little farther down the lineup. But the Blues are scoring in bunches right now, and Montreal is a dumpster fire. So if you're taking a look at some medium to high range guys, I would take a look at the Blues, because we know that Montreal is making those golf plans. They are looking ahead to the offseason. It's over in Montreal, and it's time to rebuild. I know Marty St. Louis bringing in some fresh energy, but they're going to be giving a lot of young guys some looks. This is a good time to pounce on those Montreal Canadiens from a betting perspective.
That's the game that I chose too. I took the St. Louis Blues, and it was an easy one for me as well. Nice. I did not go with Braden Shen, just because I think the second line has been playing a little bit better recently. Fair. Robert Thomas, Vladimir Tarasenko, as well as Pavel Buchnevich. So for me, Robert Thomas and Buchnevich, they're not going to be super expensive guys. You can expect them in the price range of $4,000 to $4,500. Tarasenko probably a little bit more, because he's having a stellar season so far. And on top of that, I mentioned this last week. I went with Jordan Binnington because I thought the game against the New Jersey Devils was a big matchup for him. He needed to get his mojo back. He needed to get his confidence back in the crease, and he got blown out 7-4 against the Devils. So for me, going up against this Montreal Canadiens team, they're the worst team in the NHL in goals for. They've lost 8 games in a row now. I think this is a huge game to get his confidence back, especially with the Nashville Predators and Dallas Stars barking up their tree right now in the standings.
Yeah, it almost precipitates it that he needs to be. It's a put up or shut up moment for a guy who's struggled this season, Steele. And when it's those situations with a guy that, he's a cup winner, we know he's better than this. We know that he's playing under what his expectations are for himself, probably, and what we expect. So those situations can be very profitable ones. Like I've mentioned, from a betting perspective, especially DFS. Ride with the Blues on Thursday. I think, we're not reinventing the wheel here. Montreal is Garbo. St. Louis is clicking. Sue us if this is the angle we're taking. But come on now. The Blues have looked much better, much, much better. And Montreal is moving on. It's time to rebuild. It's time to restart fresh. So the Blues, like you said, are in a playoff stretch. So playoff push. So here we go. What else you got? Are we moving on to big time bets, or are we diving back in?
Yeah, we're pretty much at big time bets, but I don't know if you read before Tyler Toffoli was traded, Martin St. Louis, he came out and said Tyler Toffoli was pretty much the captain without the C, and he was very disappointed in that trade. I obviously would be too, because Tyler Toffoli, he scored the 6th goal in that 6-2 win on Wednesday night, and he's obviously making a big impression already. So like I mentioned before, he's going to have a huge influence for the Calgary Flames, and the Montreal Canadiens are in total rebuild mode.
Yeah, rebuild mode. And a good point that you made on yesterday's show or the show before about immediately making an impact. And take a look. He has a goal. Dubé has a goal. Mangiapane has a goal. So the top 9 forward group is already benefiting hugly from Toffoli's addition. We don't know what's going on in Montreal with these moves. At least they got a first-round pick back. But I think it's top 10 protected. So there you go. But hey, not a bad return, I guess. But still, what's going on in Montreal? Hammer the Blues against them, DFS wise. I don't know if you're going to talk about it in bets, but I think it's time for big time bets with Flip and Steele. This is Thursday night's 10-game board. I have 4 selections for tonight's board. I went a little crazy. I had a little bit of extra time. Doing some research last night. So I'm going to kick it off, Steele, if you don't mind. I'm going to head right to the Pittsburgh-Toronto matchup. We talked about Sid, talked about Toronto a little bit. I'm bringing it full circle. Pittsburgh has played great against Toronto. Even without Sid to start the year, they embarrassed the Leafs at home without Sid and without Malkin. I don't know what it is about the makeup of this team right now that gives Toronto fits, but they don't seem to play well against Pittsburgh. The last few seasons, Pittsburgh is 4-1 over the last 2 seasons against Toronto, so that track record is there. I want to give the Pittsburgh Penguins some serious credit as the best road team in the NHL this season with 17 wins. That's more than the Colorado Avalanche. That's more than the New York Rangers. That's more than a lot of good teams out there. They are 17-5-3 on the road. I like this spot for the Pens. They are rolling right now. Plus 130 on the money line was the early odds. I like it a lot, and that's my first pick of the night is Penguins money line on the road against the Toronto Maple Leafs, who have looked a little shaky other than pumping the Seattle Kraken, who we know are a bit doo-doo.
Yeah.
So I'm not taking that one with full price. I like this spot for the Pens. I like the money line plus the juice. First pick of the night, Steele.
Hopefully this time you won't jinx yourself. You sent me a message last night. New Jersey Devils plus 1.5. They were up 3-1 and they get smoked 6-3. So I don't want you to jinx yourself this time with our side bet because I'm taking the Toronto Maple Leafs on the money line. The thing is, too, I was that puck line was looking very appetizing.
Oh gosh!
But you just
I scared you.
Even before you did give me a little bit of information to work off of, but
thank you. Even
before then, like you mentioned, the Penguins are one of the best teams on the road, the best team on the road. The Maple Leafs have struggled almost, it seems like, every single time they play against the Pittsburgh Penguins. So I really wanted to go with the puck line. I am the puck line guru, but this time I made the safe bet. I went with the safe option, and I'm going to go with the Maple Leafs on the money line for me. I believe they're at minus 125. So check it right there. Side bet, flip and steal.
Next side bet. These side bets are going to start getting costly soon. We might have to, we're going to need a spreadsheet or something, but what else you got, brother?
Well, I think we already talked about this. For me, the easy one was the Blues money line at minus 230. That was the easy pick for me. Like we mentioned, the Montreal Canadiens are just tires on fire right now. It's just ridiculous to watch them play. And then I talked about them in DFS as well. I'm taking the Blue Jackets on the money line at plus 135.
Ooh, I like that. I like that odd. That's an early odd. Remember, guys, we're out here recording ahead of time, so make sure you jump on these as early as you possibly can when the episode airs. And speaking of which, make sure you're following across all platforms. Like we always say, we appreciate the comments, feedback, and love. Click that subscribe. Make sure you follow on Spotify and Apple Music, and do not miss out on the latest episodes. We got the picks. We got the DFS selections. Speaking of which, Steele, I don't hate those picks. I hope you don't get burned by the Montreal Canadiens. I'm staying away from that one. Not because I think they're going to win. I got crazy with New Jersey the other night, and I'm not going to get too – I'm not going off the deep end here. We got lots of hockey left. Too early to be going too crazy yet. But with that said, I'm going to take a look at a game that probably not a lot of people are looking at. You mentioned the Blue Jackets matchup. I'm looking back at the Ottawa Senators and Buffalo Sabres. For some reason, again, I'm watching way too much Ottawa Senators hockey, way too much. I'm just watching too much hockey in general. I'm just going to stop.
There's never too much hockey. There's never too much hockey.
I had the Sabres the other night. I like the way they're playing post-break. They still don't have any goaltending, but realistically, their forward group is rounding into form. Rasmus Dahlin is starting to play the kind of hockey that they expected from a number 1 overall draft pick, sort of, most nights. Other nights, it looks like he's out there playing croquet. Anyway, I'm liking the Sabres right now a lot. I'm liking the Sabres at home, especially against the Ottawa Senators that are now dealing with injuries. We talked about Batherson and Norris till we're blue in the face. But now Shabbat is out, and Matt Murray left the other night and is questionable.
Injury prone.
You called that, and I'll give you credit for that, for saying you should stay away from the guy because he'll likely get injured. Boom, he gets injured. Anyway, from a betting perspective, this Ottawa team is running out of players to plug major holes. Batherson and Norris was one thing. Ennis, Formanton, Brown, they've stepped up. I talked about that. Shabbat is the heart and soul of that blue line and is their most important player other than Tkachuk. He is out. Murray's been red hot, and he is now out. I'm unsure who will be in the cage to back him up, but it's not going to be good. I like the Sabres. I also, for everything I just said in terms of the lack of defense and goaltending on Ottawa due to the injuries, I like the over as well. So Sabres money line minus 114 right now, and the over 6 might be a tasty little parlay if you want to put them together and slap down a 20 or a 30 bet. But I'm liking those two, Steele, and I'll save my lock of the night for after your next pick, sir.
Well, that's the shocking and surprising thing about the Buffalo Sabres is, like, looking back at that trade now, it looks like it's a huge win-win for both of these teams. Like Alex Tuch, we've talked about him countless times on the podcast, and he's been absolutely fantastic for the Buffalo Sabres since he came back from injury.
Mm-hmm.
It's surprising that Jeff Skinner's, scoring goals, putting pucks in the back of the net. He's got 21 goals on the season as well. Once they get Peyton Krebs, Owen Powers into the lineup, you said it yourself, Rasmus Dahlin has been a lot better this season as well. If they can get a decent goaltender, who knows what can happen in the next couple of years. I don't think they're going to make a deep playoff run or anything, but again, they could be a lot better of a team than we've seen them the last 3 years in counting. So for me, I like those picks right there going up against the, depleted Ottawa Senators team right now.
Yep.
My last pick, it is the Edmonton Oilers versus the Anaheim Ducks.
Okay.
Anytime assist from Connor McDavid. Of course, I'm going with McJesus here again. So for me, anytime assist from Connor McDavid.
Well, I'm glad that we didn't take the same, because everything's been same. But there are a lot of parallels here with my lock of the night. I'm going back to the Toronto-Pittsburgh game. I'm wearing black and yellow. It's a Sidney Crosby special. I'm going out with a lock of the night. Sidney Crosby, anytime assist versus the Toronto Maple Leafs. Sid is red hot, and now that 500th goal is bagged and the attention is away from him a little bit from all this hoopla about 500 and who you're going to get it against, he doesn't like to deal with that BS. He's the captain, so he takes it on the chin. That's behind him now, and he can get back to doing what he does best. We talked about it, facilitating, creating plays, and making his line mates better. He has, in 46 career regular season games against Toronto, 28 goals and 35 assists. Pretty solid track record. I love this spot for Pittsburgh in general. I like this spot for Sid to really turn the page and get back to doing what he does best and passing that puck around. I love the anytime assist for Sidney Crosby. It's going to be a great game Thursday in Toronto, and I expect to see a lot of Sid all over that ice. Hammer, anytime assist for Sidney Crosby, number 87 for my lock of the night, Steele.
I can't be mad with that pick. Sidney Crosby's had so much success against the Toronto Maple Leafs. But Flip, you're looking like a traitor right now wearing black and yellow with all those Toronto Maple Leafs merchandise behind you.
It's okay. When it's a generational type talent and it's a 500 goal mark, I can look like a traitor for a half a day because people know the color of the blood that comes out of my veins, brother.
But, I'll give it to you.
I
appreciate that.
You won't catch me wearing any orange, white, and blue from McDavid is all I'm saying. Because when it comes to Canadian loyalties, I'm not going that far. I don't mind throwing on the colors of an American team because it's only blue and white in this house when it's game time, baby.
Love it. Love to hear it. All right. So my lock of the night is going to be the Maple Leafs money line versus the Pittsburgh Penguins. Mm-hmm. Pencil it in, lock it in, flip the night, lock of the night. We appreciate all the support. Thank you so much for making Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every day. If you want more gambling advice on what you should pick, but with not just hockey, make your second listen Locked On Bet, your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Hosted by your boy Q with insight from Lee Sterling. It's free and available on all platforms, just like this podcast. So please make sure you subscribe. Go follow us on YouTube, as well as on Spotify, Apple Play, or Apple Podcasts, Google Play, all the podcast platforms. You'll get the latest episodes of the podcast every time it's available each and every day from Monday to Friday. Make sure you go message us on YouTube, leave some comments, message us on Twitter. We appreciate all the feedback you can give us and any help that we can give you. Thank you again for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. Have a great day. Good luck with all your bets tonight, and we shall see you back here again tomorrow.
Peace.